what if the universe isn't just described by code, but it actually is code, like literal executable code? Well, today we're unpacking a pretty radical idea from our source material that proposes exactly that. So yeah, let's dive right in.
So is it possible that what we think of as reality, matter, energy, is actually just information? The model we're looking at today says, yep, absolutely. It's not a metaphor. The idea is that at the very, very bottom of it all, reality is an information processing system, and it's one that's governed by a very specific set of rules. Rules that, according to this model, were divinely written. And here's the kicker, the part that frames this whole thing. This model, which is called the Dual-Caustic universe, argues that this source code was actually made readable in the 7th century. It claims the Qur'an isn't just a holy book. It is the source code for reality. I know, it's a huge claim, so let's see how they even begin to build that case. All right, so to understand this dual-caustic universe, we have to start with the basics. The whole thing is built on 3 foundational ideas, or what the model calls fundamental fields. Literally everything else, and I mean everything, consciousness, our ability to choose, even miracles, is supposedly just an interaction between these 3 things. First up is the light field, or L if you want to get technical. The easiest way to think about this is like the absolute hard-coded rules of the game. Like the laws of physics or the rules of chess. They're timeless, they don't change, they don't bend. It's just pure, raw information setting the boundaries for everything. Okay, so if light is the rule book, then the second field, the sound field, or S, is the actual game being played. It's all the stuff that happens over time. It's change, it's energy, it's entropy. It's basically everything we experience as, well, reality. The flow of history, things happening, that's all in the sound field. Now, here is the crucial rule of this whole system. The model says that light and sound are complete opposites. They're orthogonal. Think of it like matter and antimatter. If these 2 fields ever touch directly, poof, they would annihilate each other. The whole system will just cease to exist. So that leads to a pretty big question, right? How can anything exist at all if the rules and the game can't touch? And that's where the third and maybe most important piece of the puzzle comes in, the buffer, or B. This is the magic ingredient. The model says this is a conscious interface, a special zone where the timeless truth of the light field can meet the flowing events of the sound field without everything blowing up. It's the space for observation, for choice, for what the source material calls consciousness, the self, or the nafs in the Qur'an. Okay, so we have our 3 fields, but that brings up another problem. You've got this perfect, timeless information in the light field, and this chaotic, messy, time-bound world in the sound field. How on earth do you transfer information from one to the other without it getting totally corrupted or just lost? Well, the model has an answer for that too. It proposes a very specific 3-step information protocol. It's called the 237 protocol. Here's how it works. Step 1, binary. The information gets filtered down to a simple yes or no, valid or invalid. Step 2, trinity. That binary info then passes through all 3 fields, light, buffer, and sound. And finally, step 3, archetypal. This process spits out 7 complete states or modes. The big idea here is that this whole protocol acts like a perfect lossless compression algorithm for truth. Nothing gets lost in translation. Okay, so that's the theory. It's a cool idea. But where's the proof? Well, this is where it gets really interesting. The people behind this model argue that this isn't just a philosophical framework. They claim the mathematical blueprint for this entire system is literally embedded in the structure of the Qur'an itself. Let's start with just one number, 286. So what's special about 286? Well, it's the number of verses in the longest chapter of the Qur'an, Surah al-Baqarah. And according to this model, that number is absolutely not random. It's a key, a mathematical key that supposedly unlocks the whole system. Okay, stick with me here because this gets a little nerdy, but it's pretty cool. It turns out that 286 is what's known as the 11th tetrahedral number, and the model gives each part of that equation a specific meaning. 11 represents dimensional boundaries, kind of like an M theory from physics. 12 stands for a complete cycle of time, like 12 months. And 13, that's a factor of mercy, something beyond the normal rules. So the argument is that this isn't just a coincidence, it's a signature. And then you look at what that final verse 286 actually says. It reads, "A law burdens not a soul beyond its capacity." Now, the model takes this not just as a comforting thought, but as a literal physical law of the system. It's a guarantee that the buffer, our consciousness, will never be overloaded to the point of collapse. It's like a built-in safety protocol, a mathematical promise of stability, right there in the code. And it doesn't stop there. The model points to other patterns too. For instance, look at the chapters that have a prime number of verses. About 28% of them do. The claim is that this specific ratio mirrors wave-particle duality from quantum mechanics. You know, the weird idea that things can be a particle and a wave at the same time. It's presented as this signature of a system that's kind of random up close, but perfectly ordered from a distance, just like quantum physics. So let's zoom out for a second. What does all this actually mean? What are the implications? Well, if any of this were true, it would completely flip our understanding of reality on its head. It would take all these big, abstract religious ideas and turn them into, well, principles of physics.
Think of this as a sort of translation guide. In this system, revelation isn't just a mystical event. It's a technical process, a lossless data transfer from the timeless field to our world of time. A miracle? That's just a temporary tweak to the physics of the buffer. And really profound concepts like heaven and hell, they get defined as physical states of perfect alignment or total misalignment between ultimate truth and our conscious experience.
The model goes even further, applying the same physical thinking to the stories in the Qur'an, comparing the whole thing to a strand of DNA. It says you can find two opposing narrative lines running through it. You have a constructive strand, represented by figures like Abraham, and a corrective strand, with figures like Pharaoh. And just like DNA, the argument is that you need both of these opposing sides to create a complete, stable, error-correcting information system. So what's the endgame here? Where is all this heading? Well, the ultimate claim of the Dual-Caustic model is bold, to say the least. It's proposing a unified theory of everything, a single system that weaves together physics, information, consciousness, and scripture into one coherent whole. And to back this up, proponents often point to verses like this one, which essentially challenges the reader to find any contradictions. The thinking is that the kind of deep mathematical consistency the model claims to have found would be impossible for any human author to create. So if there are no errors, no discrepancies, the argument is that its origin must be non-human. Now, this is a really important point that the model's creators make. They insist they are not interpreting the Qur'an. They're not adding their own meaning to it. Instead, they say they're doing a kind of reverse engineering. They claim they're just extracting an objective mathematical structure that was already there, hidden in plain sight, just waiting for someone to decode it. And so, in the end, we're left with a pretty massive question. Code, consciousness, scripture. Could it be that these things we see as totally separate are actually just different parts of one single interconnected system? It is a fascinating, absolutely radical idea, and for sure one that really challenges you to think about what reality even is.